Cyberpunk 2077 is like that hot girl you met on Tinder. Sure, she doesn't look like the woman in the photos, but if you give her a chance, you might find out she has a great personality. In this video, I'm going to review Cyberpunk 2077 and tell you whether it's worth your time today. What's up, everyone? Big Dan here. I make videos about RPGs and action games. So if you enjoy this video, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to Big Dan Gaming. Without further ado, let's dive right in. A lot has changed since my review of Cyberpunk from last summer. The big Edgerunners update was released, a bunch of new and returning players flooded into the game after the success of the Cyberpunk anime, and we learned more details about the DLC and future updates. This is a much different Cyberpunk 2077 than the one many of us experienced back in December 2020. Forbes put together a list of all the changes CDPR made to this game since launch, and the list is staggering. Here we go. The police system has been completely overhauled. Police no longer spawn directly on top of you. Their combat AI has changed somewhat to allow for better pursuit. Still, it's pretty easy to get rid of a wanted bounty. Cyberpunk is nothing like GTA in this regard. Driving vehicles is much better than it used to be. Cars are much easier to control and more fun to drive due to some sensitivity tuning and improvements to the controls. The minimap was also zoomed out more, so you could actually see when you needed to make a turn in advance. NPC AI has been improved in a variety of ways. Drivers will try to actually drive around you if you stop in the road, most of the time. Bystander NPCs will no longer freeze or cower in place when combat breaks out, and in firefights, some NPCs will even pull a gun on you, or at the very least they'll run away from danger. The crafting UI was updated to allow you to craft multiple items at once. You can actually reject or not answer phone calls from NPCs. 4 new apartments that V can buy were added to the game. A few additional side quests were added as well, including one related to David Martinez, protagonist of the Edgerunners anime. More cosmetics and weapons were added. The perk tree was overhauled and reworked. Throwing knives were changed to auto-return to you so you no longer have to manually chase them down. Fixers now have a mission counter on the map screen so you can tell when all their missions are completed. The entire economy was rebalanced to improve cash rewards, as well as reduce the cost of many cars and guns. This is particularly helpful for achievement chasers. I personally never managed to buy every car in the game since I ran out of eddies even after completing every mission in the game. Love interests were expanded with more text conversations and the ability to wake up next to them when sleeping at your place or their place. Transmog for clothing was added, allowing you to sport the best stats without looking like a clown in the process. Cross-platform cloud saves and progressions was added. A new arcade game called Roach Race was added, plus a ton of game-breaking bugs were fixed. Did I miss anything? I think that's it. But the devs have also hinted that additional gameplay changes to Cyberpunk 2077 will be coming in the near future, including vehicle combat, a complete overhaul to the police system and melee combat, new cyberware options, and of course, an additional storyline to pursue in the Phantom Liberty DLC, which will feature Idris Elba. Be aware that all of these changes will only be coming to the PC and next-gen console versions of the game. So if you're playing Cyberpunk on PS4 or Xbox One, you're going to miss out on these updates. Overall, Cyberpunk 2077 is more polished than it has ever been, and CD Projekt Red has spent the last 2 years working hard to make the game better. It's never going to be the generation-defining RPG that it was marketed as, but it's no longer a broken, buggy mess either. That being said, glitches still do happen, and this game will likely never be completely bug-free. So with all that out of the way, let's dive into the character creator and talk about the beginning of Cyberpunk 2077. Expressing yourself through your character is one of the most exciting aspects of playing RPGs, so it's extremely important to have lots of choices to create the character you want. Cyberpunk 2077 provides you with an impressive array of options to customize your character, not just in terms of aesthetics, but playstyle as well. The amount of hairstyles and colors, piercings and tattoos, cyberware styles, and body types available to the player ensure that you can make your V and your Cyberpunk experience exactly how you want. But beyond cosmetic choices, you'll also pick your starting attributes with the option to invest points into body, reflexes, technical ability, intelligence, and cool. These will help define your character's strengths and playstyle throughout the game. Attributes cannot be respec'd after you've spent your points, so invest wisely. I typically lean into intelligence because I'm a smart guy. Just kidding, I like playing as a netrunner, so intelligence allows me to maximize my hacking abilities. You also choose from one of the 3 life paths at the beginning of the game: Street Kid, Nomad, or Corpo. Your choice of life path is largely just for flavor, but it will provide you with a unique prologue mission, a unique side quest, and a handful of exclusive quest options and dialogue choices throughout the game. I've played through all 3 life paths at this point, and the experience is largely the same, except for a little bit of flavor here and there. I have a full video exploring the differences between the life paths in Cyberpunk if you want to check that out and explore further.
What the f***'s this? Clothes?
Cheap knockoffs, too. Had real great intel, that Kirk. Like always, actually.
Let's have a little taste of the combat in Cyberpunk 2077. The combat in Cyberpunk 2077 is pretty good, with a lot of options to choose from in both arsenal and playstyle. There's guns blazing, katana wielding, grenade launcher slinging, stealth assassinations, and my personal favorite, quick hacks. I always tell myself I'm going to do a different kind of build on my next playthrough of Cyberpunk, and yet I always end up being a stealthy netrunner, frying synapses from the shadows and sending scavers to oblivion. In my earliest playthroughs of Cyberpunk, I didn't fully appreciate how dynamic the combat was, mainly because a lot of the enemies ended up T-posing or giving up on the fight cowering in a corner.
I'm an officer. An officer who works the 3rd guard shift at a warehouse outside town.
Cyberpunk sports a good variety of weapons. There's your standard fare of pistols, SMGs, ARs, heavy guns, shotguns, and more. You'll get additional functionality with smart and tech weapons, such as auto-targeting, bullet ricochet, the ability to target and shoot through walls, and charge shots, among other things. Where Cyberpunk's combat gets really interesting for me is in its cyberware and quick hacking software. You can visit a Ripper dock to upgrade different body parts like grenade launcher arms, monowire, reinforced legs giving you the power to double jump, and of course, the famous Sandevistan from the Edgerunners anime. But no matter how much you modify your body, V will never succumb to cyberpsychosis unless you install mods that add this feature to the game. I think it would be cool if Cyberpunk 2077 had a hardcore mode or a toggleable feature where V could get cyberpsychosis if you installed too much Chrome. This would make your body modification choices more significant and provide penalties if you became a Full Metal Edgerunner, much like if you turned on all of your implants in the last Deus Ex game. The stealth systems in Cyberpunk feel like a mix of Far Cry and modern Deus Ex, with your typical detection meters, silent takedowns, and hacking to create distractions. There's even a skill that basically mimics Death from Above in Far Cry. There's nothing innovative about these systems, but they work well, and if you enjoy stealth gameplay like I do, then you'll have fun being a cyberpunk ninja. Overall, the combat in Cyberpunk 2077 is satisfying and fun, which is the most important thing at the end of the day. So now, let's delve into exploration and side quests in this game. Cyberpunk 2077 offers a ginormous map with distinct districts to explore all across Night City and beyond. From the glitzy shopping plazas of City Center, to the cramped markets of Watson and Kabuki, and from the depressed residential zones of Rancho to the open deserts of the Badlands, there is plenty to discover in the dark future. And thanks to the improved driving mechanics and plethora of cool vehicles to drive, Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the few open-world games where I rarely utilize fast travel. I truly enjoy driving around Night City during missions and seeing what cool little nooks, quests, Easter eggs, or bizarre encounters I can find. But if you start digging too deep into the details of Night City, you'll realize that a lot of the buildings and areas cannot be explored. It's just a facade. But given the scope of this game's map, there's still a lot to discover, even if everything is not as deep as we had hoped it would be.
Hey, you're a troubled soul if I ever seen one. Get you something to ease the mind. Take the edge off. Got the whole alphabet. CFP, PCP, resin, skate, smash, maybe Vanadol?
If you want a little more direction to your exploration, you can hop into the game's cluttered map and select a destination to navigate to. This will create a waypoint on your minimap to help you navigate. Fast travel can only be initiated from specific terminals located around the city, much like signposts in The Witcher 3. Aside from open-ended exploration, you'll spend most of your time in this game looking for side quests and other minor activities like fixer gigs and NCPD scanner hustles. Cyberpunk 2077 has some of the best side quests I've seen in modern AAA RPGs. It's not quite as good as The Witcher 3, but it's pretty close in my opinion. The best side quests will offer interesting choices and moral dilemmas to explore. My favorites being Dream On, Judy's questline involving the management of clouds, Gary the Prophet's quest, and the last quest in Delamain's questline about a fleet of self-driving taxis. Not all the side quests meet this high bar of quality, but when Cyberpunk is at its peak performance, it sports some of the most memorable side quests I have ever played. Unfortunately, many of the other side activities, like fixer contracts, feel like simple filler aimed at ensuring there are no empty spaces on Night City's map. Some of them are fun and interesting, but most are simple fetch or kill quests. But if you ever get bored with the side content in the game, you can always jump back into the main story. I'll keep this section spoiler-free, aside from some basic tidbits, in case you haven't played Cyberpunk yet. The main story in this game is really interesting to me. I like that the player is given multiple main quests to explore simultaneously in whatever order they choose, much like Mass Effect 1. Cyberpunk 2077 also offers some significant choices with branching consequences, not only in the main story, but in some major side quests as well. The best ones offer some kind of moral dilemma or create major diverting paths for you to explore. But still, Cyberpunk fell short of expectations in the RPG choices department, which is a major point of criticism for the game. It's nowhere near as extensive as The Witcher 3, the Mass Effect trilogy, or older Fallout games, so it's good to temper your expectations a bit going in, lest you be disappointed. Once you've finished all there is to do in Cyberpunk 2077, there are also a ton of mods worth exploring as well. Cyberpunk 2077 has a great community of mod developers creating everything from cosmetics to entirely new gameplay features like cyberpsychosis. I've been playing around with a few different mods recently to tide me over until the DLC. The first and likely only expansion for Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom Liberty, is slated to release sometime this year. We don't have many details about the DLC yet, except that it will have something to do with the new United States, the Crystal Palace, and Idris Elba is playing one of the characters. So given that the DLC is somewhere on the horizon, does it make sense to wait until that comes out before playing Cyberpunk? I'd say no. In fact, it's probably best to play Cyberpunk now, that way you'll have an endgame character to start the DLC immediately when it launches. If I were looking to play Cyberpunk for the first time this year, that's what I would do. But if you're really in no hurry to get your hands on Cyberpunk, it can also make sense to wait for a sale or for the release of some kind of complete edition in the future once all updates and DLC are done and dusted. It's really up to you. The future of Cyberpunk 2077 and the franchise as a whole is looking bright at the moment. The Edgerunners anime and CDPR's commitment to fixing bugs and adding new features and content to the game has restored confidence in Cyberpunk and brought many new players into Night City in the past few months. If the DLC is good, and the studio fulfills its promises to overhaul police AI, add vehicle combat, and additional features to the game, then Cyberpunk 2077 may go down as a game that people continue playing and revisiting for years. There is certainly a deep interest in the lore and characters of the Cyberpunk universe, So hopefully CDPR will take the lessons it learned from the bumpy development of 2077 to make an even better sequel. Maybe one day they'll even be able to bring Witcher 3 quality levels of storytelling and choices and consequences to Cyberpunk. CDPR has continued to expand its studios to meet the development needs of its core franchises, with the Cyberpunk team moving to Boston to head up a new studio and develop the Cyberpunk sequel. I, for one, am excited for the future of Cyberpunk, albeit with a healthy dose of skepticism and resistance to buying into any future marketing hype they may create prior to launching a new game. They will have to work hard to regain trust from the community before anyone takes their promises at face value. So overall, is Cyberpunk 2077 worth your time in 2023? Absolutely. If you enjoy sci-fi RPGs and action games, then playing Cyberpunk 2077 is a no-brainer. True, it will never completely live up to the hype and promises of the massive pre-launch marketing campaign, but it's still a really fun game with a great story, characters, gripping quests, and a fun world to explore. I recommend Cyberpunk 2077 to anyone who's even remotely interested in the game. I've spent over 300 hours playing it at this point, and I'll probably spend many more in the coming months, especially when the DLC comes out. So there you have it, my review of Cyberpunk 2077 in 2023. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to Big Dan Gaming for more RPG videos and reviews. If you want to support this channel even further, consider becoming a member. For $5, you can get your names in the credits of these videos, as well as access to custom chat emojis and other fun perks. So if you want to be a member, hit the join button right now. Big shout out to all the channel members for supporting my content. Until next time, this has been Big Dan. I should go.